Morning guys, so I'm going to start this video showing you how to do the landscape painting. We started with our color strips and now we're going to move on to do more underpainting, and we're going to start off with the basic colors. In front of you is the image that I'm going to be using, and I hope you guys find this video very useful. Here are the strips of colors. Okay, so what I've done now is I took some burnt umber paint and I thinned it down. It's not runny, but it's also not very thick, so it's also still has its translucency without becoming too opaque. In other words, you can still see through it. It's transparent. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw out the very basics. Okay, everything that's supposed to go into the landscape, but literally the basics. And please note guys that I am not trying to make an artist copy here. All I'm going to be doing is giving you my impression of what I see, and that is what I expect you guys to do as well. Have fun with it. So what I've done now is I painted in the basic shapes, well, of the mountain range. I have not yet touched another color. It's only the brown thinned down still. Now I can start moving on to other colors. You will see that nothing is perfectly painted, that there is no solid line. It has been brushed out so that the line fades in to whatever else is supposed to happen here. Also, the line at the top is not supposed to be completely solid. Remember, this is a guideline. It is not the final yet. It will not stay like this. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of blue and white into my brown. So I keep the same color palette, but I'm just going to adjust it slightly. Okay, so I used ultramarine blue and I used titanium white. And once I mix it into the brown, it gives me this shade. It's almost Payne's gray, but not quite. Okay, so it's got that hint of brown in it still. That's what you want to do. We want to create the illusion of depth. So you guys were supposed to watch the video on atmospheric perspective. If you do this correctly, you give a hue of grayish blue to your mountain range, because this will create the illusion of depth. Okay, so let's get on with it. Same as with the brown, I'm not painting this color in very solid. It's going in the places where I see it. Also very important guys, I want you to remember, if you mix a color and you see it anywhere else in the painting, be sure to use it there, because that will create some consistency. Okay, otherwise you're going to have these random colors that you can't quite match, and it's going to be very difficult for you later on to try and match them. So if you have this color and you see it, for example, in the tip of the mountain range, bring it in. Okay, the idea is to have fun with this. So experiment. Maybe you figure something out that I don't know about or a friend doesn't know about, then we can share and have a discussion about it. Okay, so now I've added in all of that shade, that I'm going to call it Payne's gray. It's not exactly Payne's gray, but now I've added it in mostly where I see it. Now I can go on to the next color. I can start now by either working on the background, starting on the whites and so on, or I can start on the foreground with the various shades of green and blue. That I'm going to leave up to you guys. You need to work in a sort of a pattern, but it's going to depend from painting to painting. It's going to differ. Okay, so you have to evaluate your painting. Always paint from back to front. Do not start with details until you have the basic colors nailed. Okay, you don't want to paint around things. That's going to waste your time. It's going to make it overly complicated, and it's going to look unnatural, because that's when you bring flatness in, because things then start having a solid outline, and you lose the entire perspective. Okay, so good luck. Okay, so what I've done now is I still have the original blue, brown and white mixture, but now I've added green to it. So it gives me a very dark green. Okay, it's almost a viridian, but it's more like a chrome green. If you were to be using oil paints, you'd buy something called chrome green. So that's more or less the shade. This one is literally all of these colors mixed. So it's the green, my dark green, and then I've got my brown and I've got my white all mixed in, so that I have two shades of basically the same color. Okay, so it gives me different hues. Okay, now I'm going to use these. I'm just going to put those there. Now I'm going to start off with my lighter one. So what I've done also is I've added just a little drop of water. So it's again not completely runny, but it's just a little bit more liquidy so that I can manipulate it easily. And as you guys no doubt by now know, your oil paints, your acrylic paints, they dry quite easily. and once it becomes dry, it's also a little bit more harder to manipulate and work. So I just add a little bit of water to make it easy for myself to get the basics done. Okay, so I'm using a round brush, a 4 round, because it's less controlled. I've got a little bit more freedom with my brush. So, and you know, you tend not to do outlines when you have a brush like this. Okay, so I'm going to dip my brush into my darker green, and I'm going to do an alla prima, which means wet on wet. So both paints are wet and I'm manipulating them basically at the same time. There's a good reason for this. It's like I just said, because acrylic paint dries so quickly, you want to save time any way you can so that you can blend more easily without it becoming very solid and controlled. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this until I've got all the green covered where I need it to be. Okay, so now I've done most of that. I'm going to go, like you can see, most of the greens. Now I'm going to go over to a different shade of green. So what I did is I took my medium green, some brands call it sap green, and I mixed it into the lighter green that I mixed before. So now I can literally just go. Well, I just want to mention as well here, you guys can see where the strips of color start playing a role if you look at this painting, because all of this has to become green. So all of those will actually shine through. It's going to be it's going to benefit the surface quality in the end. Okay, so I'm just going to continue this until I'm happy with the result. Also, side note, the light green that I used there I also brought into the tar road, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it very often happens that tar roads become very reflective. In this case, it reflects the sunlight, the horizon, and you can see it shimmering off the surface. Okay. So now I'll be moving on to this color. So it was the same shade, I've not changed anything. So I've just added to that blue, brown and white. I've added slightly more brown and a little bit more white. Okay, so it's almost a dirty brown, like a raw umber. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the mountain range. I'm going to keep my brush strokes very free. I'm not going to try and control it too much. I want to obviously try and copy the texture as far as I can. You'll see also here that I have not thinned down my paint at all. My paint is much thicker. I didn't add water, and now I can, this is now proper starting to applying layers painting. Okay, so I'm going to do most of this now, and once again, like I told you guys now a couple of times, if you see a color and you can identify it and you see it somewhere else in the painting as well, please use it so that you can maintain some consistency throughout your painting. Okay, doesn't matter where the color goes, even if it's in the sky, then add some of it in. But please note that once you get to the sky, it's obviously air, so you can't paint it too solid just yet. Okay, we'll get there. Okay, let's continue. I'm thinning it down now because I want to put a little bit of this onto the tar surface for that reflective surface to maintain the same qualities throughout. Since every single color radiates onto it, I want to make sure that I add most of them, or even if I can, all of them. Okay, but this one, I can see that it's only in certain areas very reflective. Again, to get it this thin, I add some water, and it's referred to as a wash. Okay, because you wash it over other colors. It's not solid, not yet anyway. I'm washing my brush because I'm going over to some white. Okay, so this is not clean white like you can see. I'm trying to mix a little bit of this brown raw umber into it, so it's just off white. Now I'm going to start on the mountain range where I see some white. Remember, the more solid you make it, the more it's going to aid you later on once you start glazing, a concept which I will share with you guys in due course. For now, I'm just not going to make it as solid yet because I'm still going to add other colors into it. Okay, so what you'll see is the alla prima effect taking place. It's blending into that raw umber that I laid down just now. So it's going to be more than one tone of white, more than one hue of white. I will go over this again with white blended in with a little bit of blue the moment I'm satisfied that this color is doing what I want it to do, and that's actually giving shape to the mountain range, which is why we use it. It's going to create some definition here and there. So now I can look at more specific things going on. Remember also, when you're doing this kind of painting, the direction of the brush stroke really does help, because if I do everything in a horizontal line, it's going to elongate the painting in those directions, and it's not really going to indicate the shape of the objects. So what you want to do is you want to look at the line work that is presented in your image, in your reference material, and you really want to try and copy the direction of the lines as closely as you can. That's going to increase the amount of accuracy in your work, and it's also going to add to that little thing called perspective. Okay, and it's going to help when it comes to how realistic your mountain range looks. Also, well, whatever you're painting, you're not necessarily painting a mountain range. What I wanted to say is that all of you will follow these steps in various ways. Most of it will be similar to what I'm doing right now, so that should be relatively straightforward. Of course, you can change this at any time.